Today on the channel, it's a return of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, and we're doing something totally different. We're counting down my top 5 board games of all time.
And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Welcome everyone, Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another edition of the Kyle Peterson Top 5, a Thursday tradition here on this very YouTube channel. As every single Thursday, we're counting down my top 5 and occasional top 10 favorites of something. In today's video, totally different, away from action figures, but in the same aisle or adjacent aisle. How about that? We're counting down my top 5 favorite board games of all time, and by no means am I a board game connoisseur in my older age here. I'm talking about stuff when you're a little kid playing board games. And maybe my generation played more board games than kids of this age. As my kids, I can speak for example, don't play a whole lot of board games. Once in a blue moon, but they're more about the iPad games, the video games, things like that. And I think that's kind of the new generation of what they're doing. But the old generation, even long before my time, nothing like settling in for a hot board game on a Saturday night. Something like that. And I'm going to count down the 5 favorites of my childhood playing of board games. Some all-timers on this list, and maybe some stuff you've never heard of. You never know. But of course, as usual, it's my list. Put your list in the comments down below, and we're going to start at number 5. Work our way all the way to number 1, with number 1 being my favorite board game of all time. So without further ado, let's get the dice. Let's get after it. Let's count down the top 5 board games of all time. We kick off the countdown at number 5 with one of the most popular board games of all time, and also a game that's probably the most unfinished board game of all time. What are we going to at number 5? We're going to Monopoly. Of course, Monopoly, seemingly old as time, and it's very interesting over the last couple of decades how Monopoly has done a heck of a job of branching out from just the plain Jane Monopoly to everything under the sun. About every property in the world is seemingly having their version of Monopoly. It's a great way to sell more boards. It's a great way to move more units. So kudos to the Monopoly team out there, getting it out to different fan bases and things like that. Heck, I think they even have an Iron Maiden Monopoly board game. So that is pretty cool. But Monopoly as a kid, a little bit intimidating, but a great way to learn how to, dole out the cash, of course, and buy properties. Yeah, you got to buy properties from time to time. But there was a lot of learning going on that didn't feel like learning at the time. But looking back, I can say, hey, this is kind of where I learned to count money. This is kind of where I learned to do a lot of things in the business world. And that's where people say, Kyle, how did you get where you are in business? And I say, you know what, guys? I played Monopoly at an early age. And that's all you really needed to know. And that's the top of my resume still to this day. But of course, I grew up with the plain Jane Monopoly. That was the only Monopoly when I was a kid, and pretty much everybody before me. I don't think it was till the 90s maybe that they started getting some different board games out there. But a classic game, trying to keep all the money, trying to make everybody else go bankrupt, getting your thimble or your race car as a playing thing. A lot of fun spent on Monopoly, but as I said, how many Monopoly games were never finished? People got bored, people got sick of it, people just got frustrated, they were almost out of money and would flip the table up. A lot of that kind of stuff happened. I could probably count on one hand how many games of Monopoly actually were seen through to the very end. So I'm sure you guys and gals, don't forget the gals out there, have very similar instances with Monopoly over the years. But Monopoly coming in hot, not my favorite, but coming in at number 5. All right, we've hit the number 4 selection. Number 4 goes to, I don't know if it's a deep cut game, but it's been around a heck of a long time. It is Popomatic Trouble. Yes, Trouble, you hit that button in the middle and it makes the dice pop up and you move your little plastic pieces around. You try to get them all into the home location and then you win the game of Trouble. And Trouble, an interesting game. I never knew about it, but my grandma lived out in the country, and you'd go to her house on the weekends for a week on spring break or something. I mean, the nearest town with, let's just say, a Walmart and a Target was about a half hour away. So you were kind of out in the country. You were kind of stuck to things. She didn't always have cable as a little kid. They didn't need cable. They listened to the radio. They did their farming stuff, and they watched the regular channel. So not a lot to do for a little kid out there besides playing with your toys, and then, of course, playing with Grandpa and Grandma, playing old hot games of Trouble on a Saturday night. Oh, is there anything better than that? You get your sister, you get your grandpa, you get your grandma, and you, and oh, man, it's just Trouble with capital T is what that is. But a lot of hours over my life playing Trouble, and I always enjoyed it as a little kid. I don't know if I'd enjoy it as much as I do now, or would now. But a lot of memories, and I think that's the one thing about a lot of these board games. Nobody plays board games alone. It's kind of like bread. Nobody eats bread alone, outside of ducks, as we know. So it's also about the relationship building, the nostalgia, the memories. That's what goes into a lot of these board games here. In Trouble, for me, I think of those late nights on a Saturday night, darkness, nothing to do, in the middle of the country, and maybe 10 feet of snow out there or something, and you're playing hot games of Trouble. It might be cold outside, but it's hot inside. And Trouble, for me, comes in at number 4. We've reached the middle of the countdown. You got your list together? Remember, put it in the comments down below. And now we start separating the men from the boys, on all honesty, in these board games here. And the number 3 game is still a game I play to this day. Just the other day, just literally the other day, I played this game with good friend of the channel, Jeff George. He had never played this, and his mind was blown. His life was changed forever. And what game were we playing? We were playing a hot game of Guess Who. Yes, Guess Who. You got to guess who the other person's character is. A fun game with always some interesting twists and turns, because a game can go south real quick if somebody messes up and you say, okay, are you a female or a male? And then you get a guy like Terry. Is Terry a guy? Is he a girl? We're not even sure. So it's very confusing from time to time. It's happened to us all. I would love to, and Jeff brought this up, and it would be the greatest idea ever. Put all the pictures of people you actually know in the Guess Who. Instead of the phony cartoon pictures, let's put real people in there. I think that would be a pretty fun game to do. But Guess Who, hours and hours of entertainment back in the day. Absolutely loved it. Still holds up to this day. A very fun game. I've always loved Guess Who from when I was a little kid. I remember playing it with my friends for the first time and begging my dad, can we get this game? This game was really fun. I couldn't believe how much fun it was. And like I said, it's still fun to this very day. And a game, like I said, just recently played. And I can't say that for any other board games on this list. Recently played. So it does hold up still to this day. And coming in at number 3, Guess Who? Getting down to the wire here at the number 2 selection, and number 2 was a rainy day at school. If it rained, it snowed, whatever, you couldn't go outside for recess. This is what came out, and this is where, once again, the men were separated from the boys. What game are we talking at number 2? We're talking about Connect 4. 4 in a row. Man, get in there. I was always black. I always bet on black in my Connect 4 playing. Love Connect 4 still to this day. And I think I went undefeated for about 20 years in Connect 4. Beat my wife so many times when we first started dating. We played Connect 4 every once in a while, because why wouldn't you? That's what ladies like. If you're trying to swoon a lady, bust out the Connect 4. Trust me, it works every time. Played her many, many times, and then lo and behold, she beat me one time. I messed up. She beat me. I have not played since. That was about 15 years ago, I think, at this point. So I haven't played Connect 4 in a heck of a long time. But I never lost at Connect 4. So much so, in fact, my elementary school did like the school read X amount of books or something like that. And they got a vote on a party for the whole school. And it was a pizza party / Connect 4 tournament. And I was in 4th grade at the time. And they played the whole school. They bracketed everybody up. And they had this match after match of Connect 4 until there could only be one, like a young Highlander. And you know who was in the finals? Me and Lucas Freeze. Yes, Lucas Freeze was there. Let me tell you, he was a tough Connect 4 player. One of the all-time best. But he couldn't stand up to old Kyle. He couldn't stand up to me. He wasn't going to beat me in Connect 4. However, I knew going into this was going to be my hardest game, because him and I would usually have Cats games all the time, because he was in the same grade as me. Both 4th graders squaring off here in the Connect 4 tournament, and I knew it was going to be a tough one. And I thought to myself, because it's a cerebral game, Connect 4. You got to be a step ahead of your opponent, and here's what I did, and here's how I won the tournament. Yes, it's true. Is there any doubt that I would win? No, there was not. I did win this tournament by distracting him. I was talking to him the whole time. I was a motor mouth. Some people say I'm a motor mouth in these videos. Kept going, kept talking, kept going, kept distracting him. And finally, he put it in the wrong slot. And oh, I couldn't have celebrated more. It's my greatest achievement in life. It happened in 4th grade in a Connect 4 tournament, but I distracted. I knew that's what it would take to get to him to win, and that's what I did. It took every card in my hand, and I ended up winning. I won the Connect 4 tournament in my elementary school. An all-timer, still a great memory to me to this day. It's still a fun game to this day, even if I don't play it much anymore. That is Connect 4 at number 2, which means there can only be one. What is the greatest board game of all time? Easy decision for me, maybe tougher from you, but stay tuned. We've hit the number 1 spot in this top 5 countdown of the greatest board games of all time as voted by me. Totally different countdown than we usually do on the channel, but thought it'd be something fun, something different, something to break up the monotony of the action figure countdowns here. But we're at the number 1 selection, and once again, put your list in the comments down below. Put them in order. That's the hard part. That is the fun part. But now it is time to reveal my number 1 board game of all time, and I'll never forget my dad picking this one up when I was a little kid. A lot of hot games with my dad, my sister, and me playing this one. Never heard of it until he did bring it home. But of course, a lot of us that grew up in the 80s maybe remember the TV commercials, maybe remember some friends that had this game. What game are we talking about? We're talking about the island. We're talking about Fireball Island, the greatest game of all time. Never going to change my mind on that one. You got fire, lava, marbles. You got a big monster that shoots them out. You got cards. You got to climb that mountain. You got little figurines involved. It was an all-time game, and nothing worse than being so close to finishing, and that marble takes you down and knocks you out. Just one of the worst things that could ever happen in your childhood. No doubt about it. But Fireball Island, so many hours of fun. And it felt just so massive. It was such a big game, and it felt like more than a Monopoly, more than a Chutes and Ladders, something like that. It just had an inherent sense of danger, a little bit of an adventure, and guess what? A lot of fun. That's what it had as well. Fireball Island, absolute all-timer of a game. Now, I don't know what's up with the legalities and everything else and what's going on in this world in this day and age. However, Fireball Island was back out at my Target store a couple years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. I think it was during COVID times, all the COVID times. And I remember going to Target and seeing it and being so excited. I said, oh my gosh, we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. The family and I, we're going to sit down and we're going to play some Fireball Island. It's going to change our lives forever. We got it home. We played about one game, never to be played again because it wasn't the same Fireball Island. It didn't have the same stuff. It wasn't as big as it used to be. It was really a poor man's version. It was, the AliExpress version of Fireball Island is what it felt like to me. But then I think I read somewhere there was like legalities. They couldn't re-release the original game. For whatever reason, I don't know what it is. Somebody needs to put their differences aside and get the original one back out in circulation to everybody. That would be pretty good. And I think there might have been a Kickstarter or something, but that's not the same as being at Target and Walmart and Toys R Us at the Mall of America. How about that? But Fireball Island, the greatest board game memories I ever did have as a kid, and still to this day, look fondly back on those days of playing Fireball Island. And that is why it is number 1 in my top 5 board games list. Once again, put your list, comments down below. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to turn off the old notification bells. Turn them on. I wouldn't turn them off, but turn them on. Or don't. It's your call. It's your YouTube channel. You can do what you want. With your whole streams, you can do all that kind of stuff. But hit the notification bell. Why wouldn't you? Patreon for early access to videos like this, bonus content, exclusive content, and the best way to support the channel. You can also support the channel at ProStees.com. Search Kyle Peterson. Don't forget social media. Sir Paul64 on the X, the _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, and on Instagram. And so for another top 5, I am Kyle. See you guys all real soon.